Today, let's talk about handling objections. Now, this is something that I get really super excited about simply because not a lot of agents are well equipped to go out in the field and handle the objections that a buyer and seller can throw at us on an everyday basis. All right. So I think it's important that we actually learn a track to follow each and every time that we're working with either a buyer or a seller and determine if it's really an objection and how we can get down to the real root reason for them not wanting to move forward with either a house that they want to buy or moving forward with the sale of their personal house. All right. So I want to break down each one of those with you. Before we get started on that, I want to make sure that we understand that most of the time we are not actually hit with an objection from a potential buyer or seller. And I'm pretty sure you're asking, hey, AJ, what do you mean by that? So we have to be able to determine the difference between an objection, a stall, and a condition. Okay, now I'm going to break down each one of these so we better understand that before we move forward with the actual track of how to handle a true objection. All right, okay. So as we're out in the field working with our buyers and sellers, obviously we're going to come across a time where they hit us with an objection or something that tells us a reason why they don't want to move forward. Okay, now it's up to us to decipher, is this the real reason or is this what they're telling us to cover up the real reason? And that's exactly what a stall is. 90% of the time that you guys are working with buyers and sellers, you're going to get hit with a stall, okay? And a stall is the reason that they tell us to cover up the real reason as far as why they don't want to move forward, okay? Now, again, that's something that we're going to have to actually break down to figure out how can we actually help, all right? 5% of the time is when they tell us their objection. Now, the objection is the real reason they don't feel like moving forward, okay? And that's something that we can handle. All right, the objection track that we're going to talk about is something that we can use to handle the objection, to show them why they're feeling this way and how we can actually help them. All right, and then the last one is just called a condition. All right, and a condition just means something that may prevent them from actually being able to move forward with the sale. I'll give you an example of a condition. Maybe the seller owes more, is going to have to bring money to the closing table, and if you're working with the seller, you really don't want to ever have your client, your seller client, bring money to the closing table. That means they made no money off of it. So that means they may not have enough equity in the house in order to move forward. That's a condition. That's something that's preventing them from actually moving forward. All right. Now our job is to figure out, is this a stall that they're giving us, or is this the real reason as far as why they can't move forward, which is a condition, or is it the real reason that they just don't feel like moving forward, which is an objection? All right, guys, before we get started with the objection handling track, I'm going to pose a question to you guys, and I want you to kind of answer it quietly to yourself. Is this an objection or a stall? Hey, AJ, we want to think about it a little bit before we move forward. You guys tell me, air quotes, if that's an objection or a stall. I'll give you a quick second. Okay, that's enough, but that's a stall, okay? They're not telling us the real reason as far as why they don't feel like moving forward, okay? So that's something that we're gonna have to be able to figure out as we go along with the appointment that we're in, to figure out what's the real objection here? What's the real reason as far as why you don't wanna move forward? So how do we actually handle those objections and get down to the real reason as far as why they don't wanna move forward? Now, everything that I'm going to coach you guys on is going to be geared towards listing. So we're going to continue on that path and just act like this is a listing appointment where a seller told us, hey, AJ, this is great. We just want to think about it a little bit. Okay, so how do we handle that? Because obviously we just discussed that's a stall. How do we figure out what the real objection is? Okay, and so you can ask them these few questions. Mr. Seller, I definitely understand about you wanting to think about it, but do you mind if I ask you a few questions before I get out of here? Obviously, they're going to say yes. Is there something about the price that's concerning to you? And you wait for a response. If it's not price, here's the next question that you can ask. Is there something about your total net profit that's concerning you? If it's not that, your next question is there something about the actual terms in the listing agreement? Whatever their answer to that is, you can respond to that. Your next question is it my company? Okay? Whatever the response to that is, if it's not our company, the next question is, well, is it me? And that, whatever response to that is, obviously you can handle that objection. Or the very last question, Are you just truly unsure about moving forward? So if they are truly in that unsure state of why they don't want to move forward, okay, here's your response to that. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it seems that we're in a gray area. You're not saying yes and you're not saying no. So do you mind if I kind of probe a little bit further to figure out if there's something that I can do to help you achieve your goal of getting this house sold? Obviously, they're going to say yes because they would not have agreed to the appointment if not. Okay, and so essentially you're going to ask them 3 additional questions. Okay, now you will notice some of these are the same questions that we just asked above. We're just going to phrase it in a little different way than what we did before. All right, the first question is, was it something money related that's preventing you from moving forward? The second question is, well, is there something about the timing that may not be right with us moving forward? And finally, the third question you ask, is there a trust factor here? Did I not earn your trust and show you that I am capable and my company is capable of selling your house? So using those questions will definitely be beneficial in helping you get down to the real reason as far as why they are not wanting to move forward. Instead of just receiving that stall and packing up your stuff and leaving, I encourage you guys to ask those questions in order to actually find the real reason why they don't feel like moving forward. And then you can handle that objection for whatever it is that they give you and properly handle that in order to obtain the listing if you want the listing so you can help those people get their house sold. So let's kind of transition into the track that I want you guys to follow if they truly give you an objection. An objection is, you know what, AJ, I want more money. Or I don't think this is enough money for my net proceeds. Okay, so let's figure out the track that we can follow in order to handle that true objection that they gave us in that listing. So if a seller tells me, hey AJ, everything you did was great, we can appreciate everything like that you just presented with us, but we feel like our house is worth more. Okay, and for numbers purposes, let's just say again that they think they can sell their house for $450,000. I have it at $425,000. Okay, what the comp show is $425,000. So here's your first step in the objection handling track, and that's just agree with them. That's your very first step. And it sounds so simple, but you just agree with them. And what I mean by that is if they say, you know what, AJ, everything is great. I feel like our house is worth a little bit more than what you quoted us. Everything else is fine. We just want a little bit more money. Your agreement is, I can appreciate how you feel. If I were selling my house, I would want to get the most money out of it as well. That's how you can agree so that you can lower their barrier and not feel as if you're going to go into an argument or go into a boxing match with them. It lowers their barrier saying, okay, he understands how I feel. The next step in the objection handling track after you agree with them is just question with curiosity. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that you want a little bit more money out of the house. Just out of curiosity, why do you think you can get that? By asking that question, you may reveal some more objections that you may need to tackle during your listing appointment. But it's always good to know what's going on in the seller's mind to help you better understand how you can handle the objection and to successfully get that listing agreement signed. All right. Now, your third step in the objection handling track is to compartmentalize. What I mean by that is you got to kind of box them in. So you're going to ask them, so Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that you want a little bit more money than what I originally quoted for you guys. You want $450,000. I think the house is going to sell around $425,000. Other than price, is there anything else that's concerning to you? Okay. Now, when you ask that question again, more objections may come up. And we talked about those questions that you can ask to figure out what the true objection is, or what if they gave you a stall, figure out what the true objection is. But just by compartmentalizing and boxing them in to figure out, okay, which objection do I need to handle? Am I just handling price, or am I handling a timing issue? But asking, is there anything else that may be concerning to you as far as why you don't want to move forward is a great question to ask, because it allows you to figure out how you need to go about that objection. After you get the commitment and kind of compartmentalize that this is the only thing that's bothering them, the next step that you do in your objection handling track is get a commitment. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if I could show you that your house won't sell for $450 and it's probably going to be closer to the $425 mark, are you willing to move forward? So I want you guys to remember this phrase. If I could, would you? All right. And so that kind of leads you into what your next step is in the objection handling track. And that's just to simply handle that objection with a visual. Okay. Now with the visual, what I mean by that is if you have your CMA ready to go, here's where you can bring it out and show them exactly why you feel that the house can sell for $425 versus $450. All right. So that's step number 4 and 5. Get a commitment and then handle the objection with the visual. And finally, step number 6 in the objection handling track is simply to close. You've shown them your visual, you've showed them exactly what the neighborhood suggests and what you think the house can sell for by providing them with CMAs, by providing them with everything that's sold in the neighborhood, and now you're just simply closing. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you've seen what the neighborhood can bear, you've seen other houses in the neighborhood that look like yours, what they've actually sold for. Are there any more questions or should we just move forward? Now, again, here's where you could be faced with more objections. And you just go through the same track again if they come back with another objection. All right. Following that track allows you to stay on track with whatever objection they give you without getting frustrated. You just follow the track and you have those questions to ask as well to figure out what the real objection is. Okay. Now, I hope that's helpful. I think this is something that we're going to have to practice, on a weekly basis or a daily basis until we actually get more comfortable with it. But following this objection handling track really does make your life easier. A lot of agents get so frustrated when they're hit with an objection. This allows the frustration to subside. You have your track to follow to make sure that you're staying on track, and you have those questions that you can ask to make sure that you can really figure out what the objection is, and it makes for a much better listing appointment. You actually understand what's going on in the seller's mind, and you can walk away if you don't get the listing agreement signed feeling as if you've done everything to help that seller achieve their goal. All right. That's all I got for you guys. Again, reach out with any questions. I hope this is helpful. We're going to continue to do more and more videos that you guys can tap back into on the Supreme One Assist website. All right.